The baby in my belly kicked lightly, as if sensing that I was staring at the massive electronic screen. I stood in the VIP waiting area on the third floor of an elite prenatal center in Manhattan, gripping the referral slip for my 5-month routine checkup. The air conditioning was blasting, and I shivered, instinctively wrapping my hands around my noticeably rounded bump. My appointment was for 3:00 p.m. Damian Mercer's assistant had sworn just yesterday that Damian would absolutely make time to be here. Naturally, over the past 5 months, that promise hadn't been kept a single time. "Miss Vance, there are still 2 people ahead of you. You can have a seat and relax." The receptionist smiled warmly at me. I nodded. Barely had I sunk into the plush armchair by the floor-to-ceiling window when a murmur rippled through the waiting room. "Look, that's the CEO of Mercer Corporation. Oh my God. It is Damian Mercer. He's getting married. The bride is Scarlett Sutton, the one who just won a Golden Globe." The voices washed over me like a tidal wave. I lifted my head. The massive screen taking up the entire wall opposite the waiting area usually broadcasted educational videos on pregnancy and clinic advertisements. But right now, it was streaming a live entertainment news broadcast. A shaky camera focused on a blindingly white chapel perched on a private coastal estate in Newport, Rhode Island. The sun was so bright the screen seemed to glow from within. A red carpet stretched from the private dock all the way to the chapel entrance. Event coordinators in matching uniforms flanked both sides. A drone camera swept over the ocean. At least 30 luxury yachts were moored in the azure waters. Reporters with cameras were clearly visible on several decks. And then, he appeared. Damian Mercer, wearing a bespoke black tuxedo. His posture was as straight and sharp as an unsheathed blade. He stood under an archway at the chapel entrance, his profile to the camera. His jawline was tense. The ocean breeze slightly ruffled his dark hair, but he didn't fix it. He just raised his wrist and checked his watch. That gesture was painfully familiar to me. It was impatience, barely restrained. "Damian looks absolutely incredible today," sighed a young pregnant woman nearby, glued to her phone. "I heard this wedding cost tens of millions of dollars," her friend whispered back. "Scarlett Sutton's dress is from a French couturier. The veil alone is 60 feet long. And forget the dress, look at the flowers in the chapel. Those are all Ecuadorian roses, flown in this morning on a private jet." My nails dug into my palms. The camera moved inside the chapel. The organ music, slightly distorted by the screen's cheap speakers, sounded a bit tinny, but it was unmistakably the wedding march. Every pew was packed with guests. I recognized several faces that frequently graced the covers of Forbes. Irene Mercer, his mother, sat in the front row in a strict, deep plum suit. Not a single hair was out of place. She was smiling. I had seen that smile in their Greenwich mansion countless times, regal, appropriate, but without a shred of warmth in her eyes. Then, the bride appeared. Scarlett Sutton, arm in arm with her father, walked slowly down the aisle. The wedding dress was truly breathtaking. Cascades of lace and diamond dust sparkled blindingly in the sunlight. The veil obscured most of her face, but you could see the corners of her nude-painted lips turned up in a meticulously calculated smile. She reached Damian. The priest began to recite the vows. The news ticker scrolling at the bottom of the screen pierced me like a knife. Live. Wedding of Mercer Corp. CEO Damian Mercer and movie star Scarlett Sutton. The wedding of the century at a private estate, a union of a business magnate and the queen of the screen. Rumor has it, Scarlett is 2 months pregnant. Double the joy. My stomach suddenly seized in a sharp cramp. It wasn't the baby kicking, it was a contraction. Light, but enough to make me double over and lean heavily against the coffee table next to me. "Miss Vance, are you all right?" A nurse rushed over. I shook my head, struggling to catch my breath. "I'm fine. It's just a bit stuffy in here." But my eyes were glued to the screen. The priest's voice echoed from the speakers. "Do you, Damian, take Scarlett to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish? Until death do you part?" The entire waiting room went dead silent. Everyone held their breath, waiting for the answer. The camera zoomed in on Damian's face. A muscle in his jaw twitched almost imperceptibly. Then, his deep, clear voice echoed through the microphone. "I do. And do you, Scarlett? I do." Scarlett's voice was sweet as honey. She didn't even wait for the priest to finish. Cheers erupted from the screen. Confetti and rose petals rained down from above. Damien lifted Scarlett's veil, leaned in, and kissed her. The camera zoomed in further. You could clearly see him close his eyelashes casting a shadow on his cheek. He kissed her for a long time. So long that someone in the waiting room actually started clapping. So long that I felt the referral slip in my hand grow hot and damp with sweat, its edges completely crumpled. The nurse gently touched my shoulder. "Miss Vance, it's your turn. Doctor. Evans is waiting for you in room 2. I turned to her. Everything was blurring before my eyes. "All right," I heard my own voice say, surprisingly steady. "I'm coming." As I stood up, I felt my knees buckle. I leaned against the back of the chair, took a deep breath, and slowly, step by step, walked toward the doctor's office. Behind me, the ecstatic cheers from the screen continued, blending with the excited voice of the anchor. "And now, ladies and gentlemen, let's raise a glass to the newlyweds." The office door clicked shut behind me, and the world instantly became twice as quiet. Dr. Evans was a specialist retained by the Mercer family. She was in her 50s, wearing gold-rimmed glasses. Smiling, she pointed to the exam table. "Anna, you're here." "Ah, Damien couldn't make it today?" I silently handed her my crumpled referral slip. She took it, skimming it. "At your last checkup, you had a low-lying placenta. We'll take a closer look today to see if it's moved up." "Don't worry, it happens to a lot of women in early pregnancy." Cold gel spread across my belly. The ultrasound wand pressed into my skin and glided across it. The monitor flickered to life. The black and white image blinked a few times before stabilizing. 2 tiny figures, curled up, floated in the amniotic fluid. You could see their beating hearts, their little arms and legs. "The twins are developing beautifully, doctor." Evans's voice was professionally soothing. "Look, here's the boy, and here's the girl. Oh, the little guy is kicking his sister." I stared at the screen. 2 tiny human beings. My babies. And Damien Mercer's babies. Legally, he was still my husband. Our marriage certificate was locked in a safe deposit box, though I hadn't seen that piece of paper in almost a year. Irene Mercer had brought up divorce 6 months ago. I had signed the papers, but Damien had never added his signature. He said he was busy, that there was no rush, that it would be safer to finalize everything after the babies were born. Safer. What an ironic word. Both heartbeats are excellent. Dr. Evans handed me a few paper towels. "Wipe off, make sure you rest more, and don't overwork yourself. You look a bit pale. Did you skip lunch?" I slowly sat up, wiping the gel from my stomach. "Dr. Evans?" I began, my voice sounding hoarse. "If a pregnant woman experiences severe emotional stress, does it strongly affect the babies?" She adjusted her glasses. "It depends on the stress. Usually with a brief, intense emotional spike, the mother's body regulates itself. But if it's prolonged..." She paused, looking at me closely. "Anna, did something happen?" I shook my head, stepping down from the table. "Nothing, just asking." When I walked out of the office, the screen in the waiting area was back to playing an educational documentary about gestational diabetes diets. The pregnant women who had been watching the broadcast had dispersed. Some were scrolling on their phones, others chatted quietly. Fragments of conversation drifted my way. Damien Mercer and Scarlett Sutton. Such a beautiful couple. I walked past them and took the elevator down. The hospital lobby was bustling. Long lines stretched in front of the cashiers. People crowded around the information desk. I squeezed through the crowd and pushed open the glass doors. The mid-afternoon sun hit my face like a physical blow. My phone vibrated in my purse. I pulled it out. A name lit up the screen. Damien Mercer. My finger hovered over the accept button for 3 seconds. Then, I swiped left, declining the call. The vibration stopped. A few seconds later, it buzzed again. This time, a text message. "Dinner at Per Se tonight at 7:00 p.m. Mother says you absolutely must be there. Arthur will pick you up at 5:00. I stared at those lines and suddenly burst out laughing. I laughed until my eyes burned. I looked up. On the massive LED billboard across the street in Times Square, they were broadcasting the wedding, too. The camera was aimed at the newlyweds cutting the cake. Damien was holding Scarlett's hand. Together, they gripped the knife. Scarlett was smiling so hard, her eyes were crescents. She was practically pressing her entire body against his. Damien's face was devoid of emotion, but he didn't pull away. He even whispered something in her ear, making her laugh even harder. My phone rang again. This time, it was Irene Mercer. Did you see the news? Damien and Scarlett got officially engaged today. The formal wedding ceremony will be held after she has the baby. You will come to dinner tonight. We need to clarify a few things. Do not make a scene or it will be worse for you. I locked my phone screen and tossed it back into my bag. Then I raised my hand to hail a yellow cab. The driver rolled down the window. Where to? Tribeca. Hudson Towers. I gave the address of my best friend, Olivia. The cab merged into the traffic. I leaned against the window, watching the city skyline rush by. As we drove down Broadway, another giant screen was looping the wedding broadcast. A crowd had gathered below, looking up. One girl was even recording it on her phone. Now that's romance, the cab driver casually remarked, glancing at the screen. Rich people and their whims. They say the jewelry on that actress alone cost as much as a Manhattan penthouse. I didn't answer. He kept talking to himself. Though, in those billionaire marriages, it's all just for show. Who knows what's really going on behind closed doors? The phone in my bag buzzed again. An unknown number. Hesitating, I answered it anyway. A fast-talking male voice came through. Hello. I'm a reporter from Weekly News. We received a tip that you are, in fact, Damien Mercer's legal wife. His wedding today to Scarlett Sutton could be considered bigamy. Care to comment? I gripped the phone tighter. Miss Vance, are you there? You have the wrong number, I replied calmly. But we have proof that you and Mr. Mercer registered your marriage 3 years ago. And that you're currently pregnant, I said. You have the wrong number. I hung up and immediately powered off the phone. The taxi pulled up to the entrance of Hudson Towers. I paid, got out, and walked into the luxury building. I took the elevator up to Olivia's penthouse as usual and rang the bell. The door opened almost a minute later. Olivia stood there in a silk robe, her hair a mess, clearly having just rolled out of bed. Seeing me, she was taken aback. Anna, what are you doing here at this hour? Didn't you have your doctor's appointment? I stepped inside and slammed the door behind me. Then, leaning my back against it, I slowly slid down to the hardwood floor. Liv, I looked up at her. Help me. What happened? Olivia instantly dropped to her knees and grabbed my hands. Why are your hands like ice? You're as white as a sheet. Did the Mercers do something again? I shook my head, then nodded. Finally, I forced the words out. Damien married Scarlett Sutton today. I spoke word by word, my voice so detached it terrified even me. Broadcasted nationwide. I checked was at the clinic for my ultrasound. They showed it on the giant screen in the waiting room. Olivia's expression morphed from confusion to shock. And then her face flushed crimson with rage. Is he out of his mind? You haven't even divorced yet. That's bigamy. I'll sue him. It's useless, I cut her off. The Mercers can turn black into white. Besides, I signed the divorce agreement. He just never signed it back. In their eyes, I haven't been a Mercer daughter-in-law for a long time. But he can't do this, Anna. I squeezed her hand. Hard. Help me. I want to leave this country. Tonight. But you're 5 months pregnant. That's exactly why you need to stay. I looked her dead in the eye. Do you still have connections at Delta Airlines? Get me a ticket for an international flight immediately. Anywhere. Just don't buy it under my name. Book it under yours. I'll pick up the ticket at the airport. Olivia's lips trembled. Anna, think about this. It's too risky. You're alone. And with twins, staying here is riskier. I let go of her hand, pushed off the floor, and stood up. Irene Mercer ordered me to be at a family dinner tonight. Do you know what that means? She wants to force me, in front of the whole family, to acknowledge Scarlett Sutton as the future lady of the house. She wants to force me to sign away my parental rights. She wants me to take a payoff like a beggar and get lost. I walked over to the living room window and pulled back the curtains. The late afternoon sunlight flooded the room, stinging my eyes. I've made my decision, I said, my back to Olivia. I will have these babies, but they will not carry the Mercer name. They will be mine, and mine alone. There was a long silence behind me. Then, I heard Olivia sniffle. Okay, she said, her voice cracking. I'll help you. She dashed into her bedroom and returned with her laptop. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. There's a direct flight to Singapore tonight at 9:45 p.m. 2 seats left in business class. I'm booking it under my cousin's name, Chloe Peters. When you get to JFK, go to the VIP counter and use her name to get the boarding pass. Thank you. When you get to Singapore, you'll stay with my Aunt Helen for a while. She's a wonderful person. She'll take care of you. Once you're settled, we'll figure out what to do next. Liv, I turned to her. Don't tell anyone about this. Not even your aunt. She froze. Why? The Mercers have a long reach. I walked over to the sofa and sat down, gently stroking my belly. I don't want to implicate anyone. I'll find my own place to live in Singapore. Don't worry. I have some money on a debit card. It'll be enough to get started. It was the money I had been secretly saving for 3 years. The allowance Irene Mercer gave me every month I hadn't spent a dime. I transferred all of it to an offshore account. It wasn't a fortune, about $150,000, but it was enough to start from scratch. Olivia's eyes teared up again. Anna, why do you have to suffer like this? Because I don't want to be a goldfish in a glass bowl anymore, I answered quietly. A car horn honked from the street below. I walked to the window and looked down. A black Mercedes SUV, the Mercer's car, was parked in front of the building. The driver, Arthur, had stepped out and was pulling out his phone to make a call. They're here, I said. Olivia rushed to the window. Already? It's only 4:30. Irene Mercer never liked waiting. I'm going down. I headed for the door. Liv, text me the ticket info. I'll contact you when I get to the airport. Anna. Olivia grabbed my arm, tears finally spilling over. Please be careful. Let me know the second you're safe. I hugged her tight. I will. I opened the door and walked out. As the elevator descended, I stared at my reflection in the mirrored walls. Pale, exhausted face. Dark circles under my eyes. But my eyes were burning like steel forged in fire. The ground floor. I walked out of the elevator and pushed through the lobby doors. Arthur, seeing me, quickly put his phone away. Miss Vance, Mrs. Mercer sent me to pick you up. All right. I got into the back seat. The SUV pulled away from the curb and merged into the evening traffic. Arthur glanced at me in the rearview mirror several times, wanting to say something but hesitating. Finally, he couldn't hold back. Miss Vance, did you watch the news today? I did, I replied, staring out the window. A spectacular wedding. Arthur fell silent. The cabin was quiet, save for the low hum of the AC. I closed my eyes, mentally counting the days. 5 months. 150 days. Damian Mercer. Irene Mercer. Scarlett Sutton. Every debt you owe me. I will remember. When I return, I will be the one making the rules. I didn't go to the Mercer family dinner. The black Mercedes was taking me toward their Greenwich estate, but 3 blocks before we arrived, I tapped the back of the driver's seat. Arthur, pull over here. He looked at me in the mirror, confused. Miss Vance, we're not there yet. I don't feel well. I'm going to be sick. I covered my mouth, my voice muffled. Just for a minute. The SUV slowly pulled over to the curb. The second I pushed the door open, I doubled over, pretending to dry heave. Arthur immediately unbuckled, jumped out, and ran around the car to help me. Miss Vance, are you okay? Do you need some water? This was my chance. I bolted upright, and before Arthur could react, I sprinted toward the open entrance of a nearby underground parking garage. The click-clack of my heels echoed through the concrete space. Mid-stride, I shucked off my designer coat, pulled a dark gray hoodie out of my oversized tote bag, and shoved it over my head. Miss Vance, Miss Vance! Arthur's shouts echoed behind me. I didn't look back. The garage had an exit leading straight into a back alley. Olivia's car, an inconspicuous white hatchback with out-of-state plates, was already idling there. The moment I jumped into the passenger seat, Olivia slammed the gas. Seatbelt! Her voice was tight. The car was already screeching away. I looked through the rear window and saw Arthur reach the end of the alley, stop in utter confusion, and finally pull out his phone in frustration. He's definitely calling the Mercers, Olivia said, sharply turning the wheel to merge onto the main road. We need to get to the airport, fast. I dug into my bag, found my powered-off phone, rolled down the window, and tossed it into the back of a passing garbage truck. Olivia stared at me, eyes wide. Everything that can track me needs to be destroyed, I said calmly, pulling a brand new burner phone out of my bag and inserting a prepaid SIM card. Liv, are the tickets confirmed? Confirmed. Olivia handed me a folder. Passport, visa, booking confirmation. It's all here. I got you an expedited business visa. The photo is of you from 3 months ago, but the name is Chloe Peters. That's my cousin. My Aunt Helen will meet you in Singapore, but she only knows you as my friend who's going there for a peaceful pregnancy. Nothing else. I opened the passport. I looked thinner in the photo than I did now, and my eyes were different. Back then, they still had light in them. Now, there was only icy emptiness. Thank you. I pressed the folder to my chest like a lifeline. We drove to JFK in silence. The setting sun painted the New York skyline in shades of orange and blood red. Traffic was backed up on the expressways, taillights blurring into a river of red. I stared out the window, saying goodbye to the country I had lived in for 25 years. I was born here, went to college here, met Damien here. Here, I had put on that absurdly expensive, ice-cold wedding ring. Now, I was leaving with 2 tiny lives in my belly who hadn't even seen the world yet. Anna. Olivia suddenly broke the silence, her voice a little thick. Are you sure you want to go down this path? Giving birth and raising twins alone in a foreign country. It's going to be so hard. I turned to her and smiled. Is staying with the Mercers any easier? She went quiet. We pulled up to Terminal 4 for international departures. Olivia parked in the temporary drop-off zone, turned, and hugged me fiercely. The second you land, contact me. Text me every day. If you run out of money, tell me. I'll wire it. You've already done more than enough. I hugged her back. Liv, for the next few years, do not try to contact me. If the Mercers interrogate you, play dumb. I pulled back and looked her in the eyes. Wait until I reach out to you. Dragging a small carry-on suitcase, I walked into the terminal. Inside the bag were a few changes of clothes, essential documents, and a bottle of folic acid. Everything else that belonged to Anna Vance, wife of Damien Mercer, was left in that luxurious but freezing mansion, including the 3-carat diamond ring. I had left it right on the vanity, in plain sight. What expression would Damien make when he saw it? I didn't know, and I didn't care. Security. Waiting. At 9:45 p.m., the plane took off right on schedule. As the landing gear detached from the tarmac, carrying us into the night sky, I looked out the window at the receding city lights and gently placed a hand on my belly. Babies, I whispered. Mommy is taking you to a new world. Monsoon season in Singapore, hot and impossibly humid. Olivia's aunt, Helen, turned out to be a kind, middle-aged woman who ran a traditional, holistic, and acupuncture clinic. She put me up in a small, slightly run-down but immaculately clean apartment above the clinic. 2 rooms, a living area. Olivia said you came here for a stress-free pregnancy, and that your living situation back home wasn't great, Aunt Helen said, bringing me a bowl of nourishing chicken broth. Live here in peace. If you need anything, tell me. I don't get too many patients, so it's quiet upstairs. Perfect for resting. I gratefully took the bowl. Thank you, Aunt Helen. Don't mention it. She sat across from me, eyeing my belly. 5 months. Twins. Must be heavy. Look how skinny you are. Come downstairs every day. I'll check your pulse and give you some treatments. And so, I stayed in that tiny apartment in a foreign land. For the first 2 months, I barely went outside. Every day, I helped Aunt Helen in the clinic, sorting herbs, learning the properties of different dried roots and leaves. During the day, she checked my pulse and did acupuncture. At night, I read her extensive collection of holistic medicine books. My belly grew by the day. By the 7th month, I couldn't see my own feet. One night, deep into the AMs, I was reading propped up against the headboard when a sharp, twisting pain seized my abdomen. My water broke. Gritting my teeth, I fumbled for my phone and dialed Aunt Helen. She rushed up in 5 minutes. Taking one look at me, she immediately called an ambulance. The contractions intensified on the way to the hospital. I gripped Aunt Helen's hand so hard I thought my nails were drawing blood. Deep breaths, she kept repeating, though the tension in her voice betrayed her panic. Twins, premature at 7 months. I knew the risks. By the time they wheeled me into the delivery room, I was half conscious from the pain. The blinding surgical lights burned my eyes. The nurses' voices sounded miles away. Push. Again. I don't know how much time passed, but the air was suddenly pierced by a baby's cry. And then, a second one. Boy first. Girl 30 seconds later. The nurse brought 2 swaddled bundles over to me. Congratulations. You have a royal pair. Premature, but they have a strong set of lungs. They should be just fine. I turned my head and looked at the 2 tiny, red, wrinkled faces. The tears flowed on their own. The boy is Alex. I rasped out. And the girl is Mia. Those were the names I had picked out a long time ago. Back when I used to lie on that massive bed in the Mercer mansion, staring at the crystal chandelier, dreaming of the future. Aunt Helen, her eyes red, nodded. Good names. I spent the first few weeks postpartum in the clinic. Aunt Helen took care of me like her own daughter, cooking different restorative broths and meals every day. Because they were early, stent. When they finally came home, they were tiny but full of life. When the twins turned 3 months old, I made my first major move. Aunt Helen, I want to rent the commercial space next to your clinic. I placed my debit card on the table. This is my savings, about $90,000. I want to open a postpartum maternal and childcare center. Aunt Helen froze. Anna, you're still nursing. Your body hasn't fully recovered. I can't wait. I looked at the babies sleeping in their cribs. I need to get on my feet as soon as possible. Half of this money will go toward rent and renovations. The other half, I want to pay you to teach me traditional, holistic postpartum recovery methods. She stared at me for a long time, finally sighing. You're a stubborn girl. If I wasn't stubborn, I would have died in the Mercer house a long time ago. I secured the space quickly. 500 square feet. It used to be a coffee shop. I drew up the design plans myself, light wood tones, soft lighting, an entire wall dedicated to nursing rooms, and a specialized herbal steam room, Lumina Maternal and Child Center. The day we hung the sign, the sun was shining bright. Mia babbled in her stroller, waving her little fists. Alex watched silently, his eyes taking everything in. His eyes were so much like his, but the gaze was entirely different. It was the gaze of my child. No coldness, no calculation, just pure curiosity. For the first 3 months, we didn't have a single client. Aunt Helen brought over a few of her postpartum patients. That's how I got my first customers. I tapped into everything I had learned as an economics major back in the States. I designed service packages, printed flyers, and even taught myself to code a simple website. My first real clients were American and European expat moms. They tried the holistic steam treatments, the postpartum massages, and word of mouth took over. The clientele grew steadily. By the time the kids turned 1, Lumina had 3 employees. By day, I worked at the center. By evening, I took care of the kids. And by night, I studied to get my local certifications in early childhood care. I was exhausted, but every day had purpose. Alex spoke first. One morning, sitting in his crib, he looked at me and clearly said, "Mama." I burst into tears on the spot. Mia started talking a month later, but she walked first. When she staggered into my arms for the first time, her brother couldn't stop giggling. In those days, my phone was maxed out with their photos and videos. But I didn't dare send a single one to Olivia. I knew exactly how much power the Mercer Corporation wielded. Any digital footprint could be a breadcrumb. I could only pour my thoughts and their milestones into a thick journal. For the day, I could finally stand proudly in the sun. By year 3, Lumina opened its second location. I earned international certifications in postpartum recovery. My courses blending traditional holistic medicine with modern science were even featured in local parenting magazines. By year 4, I expanded into early childhood development, leasing a 3-story building. The care center on the first floor, classrooms on the second, and an apartment for me and the kids on the third. Business was booming, but I never stopped gathering intelligence. Olivia flew to Singapore twice a year, bringing news of the Mercers every time. Damien and Scarlett still haven't gotten married, she whispered while playing with Mia. After that wedding, Damien suddenly backed out. He still hasn't signed the papers. Scarlett threw a few public tantrums, but Irene Mercer swept it all under the rug. I was reading a book to Alex. my fingers pausing on the page. Why did he back out? Nobody knows. Rumor is, Damien is looking for someone. Obsessively. He pulled all the security footage from the day you disappeared. Intersections, train stations, airports, but your passport was never scanned. He couldn't find a trace of your departure. Because I used Chloe Peters' passport. Scarlett still parades around as Damien's fiancée, but everyone in their circle knows the family never fully accepted her. Irene Mercer seems fed up with her too, thinks an actress is beneath their status. Olivia scoffed. Serves her right. You sleep your way into someone else's marriage, you deal with the consequences. I closed the book. Alex, Mia, go play with your blocks. The twins obediently held hands and trotted over to the play corner. The Mercer Corporation has been aggressively expanding into the maternal and childcare sector for the last few years. I walked to my desk and opened my laptop. They bought up several domestic brands. Last year, they launched Aura, a luxury maternity center that directly competes with the concept of Lumina. But I opened a file. I paid some people to run independent quality checks on their products. 3 batches of their baby lotion tested way over the legal limit for lead. They paid to bury the findings. Olivia stepped closer. How did you find that out? Money buys anything. I replied calmly. The Mercers have a lot of enemies. And a lot of people want dirt on them. I'm just one of them, Anna. What are you planning? I stared at the Mercer Corp logo on the screen. It was the family I had once thought I'd dedicate my life to. I'm going back, I said. Olivia gasped. Are you crazy? Damien is still looking for you, if you go back. That's why I need a new status. I pulled a folder from my safe. Lumina is already a recognized name in its niche here in Singapore. I plan to make a high-profile entry into the US market as an international brand. I'll keep the name Anna Vance. But I won't be Anna Vance, the pathetic Mercer daughter-in-law. I'll be Anna Vance, founder and CEO of Lumina. It's too risky. Liv, I cut her off. I've hidden for 5 years. The kids are 4. They need to know where their roots are. Besides, I walked to the window and looked down at the kids playing in the garden. Some debts need to be collected. In the spring of the 5th year, preparations for Lumina's US headquarters officially began. I registered the company, assembled an executive team, and leased 2 floors in a prime Manhattan high-rise. The night before my flight, I sat by the floor-to-ceiling window of my Singapore apartment, staring at the skyline. Saved on my phone was an anonymous email I had received earlier that day. Attached was a video file, security footage from the prenatal center waiting room, the date, that exact day 5 years ago. In the video, a pale version of me, clutching my belly, stared at a large screen broadcasting Damien and Scarlett's wedding. The email text was one sentence. Requested item acquired. Wire the balance to the following account. I closed the video and opened another folder. It contained everything I had gathered over the past 5 years. Internal memos proving the falsification of Mercer baby product safety tests. Records of Irene Mercer using illegal tactics to crush competitors. Compromising photos of Scarlett Sutton with a famous Hollywood director. Evidence of tax evasion by several of Damien's relatives. And a blank template for a DNA paternity test. I picked up a framed photo from my desk. Me and the kids on the beach in Sentosa. Sunset. I was crouching down, and Alex and Mia were kissing both my cheeks. Babies, I whispered. Tomorrow, we're going home. The nightlights of Singapore glowed silently, but I knew the real battlefield awaited me 10,000 miles away, in the city I had fled 5 years ago, Damien Mercer. I'm back. Are you ready for me? The plane touched down at JFK at 3:00 p.m. Alex pressed his face against the window. Mommy, is this where you were born? Yes. I adjusted his seatbelt. And this is where you and your sister were supposed to be born too. Mia sat in the next seat, intensely focused on solving a Rubik's Cube. Hearing us, she looked up, blinking her clear eyes she inherited from me. Is Daddy here? The cabin went dead silent for a second. My assistant, Lauren, sitting behind us, instinctively looked at me. I calmly adjusted Mia's collar. Daddy is very far away. We're going to see Aunt Olivia first. Okay. Mia nodded and went back to her cube. The answer satisfied her perfectly. For the 4 years of her life, Daddy had just been a character from storybooks. I never intentionally erased his existence, But I never brought him up either. The plane taxied to the gate. I took the kids by the hands and walked off. 5 years of exile vanished the moment my feet hit the jet bridge. The smell of the air, the familiar American accents over the intercom, the recognizable brands on the billboards. Everything reminded me I was back. Olivia was waiting for us outside the VIP arrivals. She practically sprinted over and crushed me in a hug. You brat. 5 years. Do you know what these 5 years have been like for me? Her voice shook with tears. I rubbed her back. I'm sorry, what good is sorry? She pulled back, her eyes red, and crouched down in front of the kids. This is Alex and Mia? Oh my God, you guys grew so much. Let Auntie give you a hug. Alex acted shy and hid behind my leg. But Mia confidently threw her arms open. Hi, Aunt Olivia. Mommy showed us your pictures all the time. Good girl. Olivia scooped Mia up and patted Alex on the head. Come on, Auntie's gonna buy you the best food in the city. In the car, heading toward Manhattan, Olivia finally calmed down and switched to business mode. Tomorrow night, there's an industry gala. I got you an invitation. It's sponsored by the Department of Commerce, extremely high level. Every major player in U.S. healthcare and childcare will be there. Damian Mercer has RSVP'd. She pulled out an iPad and opened a guest list. Here's his track record over the last 3 years. Mercer Corp has been pushing hard into the maternal care sector, but their growth stalled last year. This year, they want to launch Aura clinics nationwide, which directly competes with Lumina. I stared at Damian's photo on the iPad. The same face, deep-set eyes, cold gaze. Except now, there were fine lines at the corners of his eyes, and his gaze felt even heavier. He had aged, hardened. Scarlett became the brand ambassador for Mercer Baby 6 months ago. The press releases were everywhere. The future misses. Mercer personally guarantees product quality, but they barely appear in public together anymore. Rumor is, Irene Mercer forced her to sign an ironclad prenup. Scarlett threw a fit, but she got put in her place. I nodded. My eyes drifted to the next name. Osborne Health is going to be there too. Andrew Osborne took over his family's business 3 years ago. He's been investing heavily in healthcare tech. Last week, he was poking around through intermediaries, asking about Lumina. Olivia lowered her voice. Anna, you remember Andrew Osborne, right? I do. How could I forget? He courted me for 2 years in college. After I rejected him, he went to Europe for his MBA. Now he was back as a billionaire heir. Small world. Does he know the founder of Lumina is you? I don't think so. I heard people saying Lumina's founder is an Anna Vance from Singapore, but everyone assumes it's a coincidence. But tomorrow at the gala, you'll have to use your real name. That's fine, I locked the iPad. Whoever I'm meant to run into, I'll run into. The car pulled up to a luxury high-rise in Tribeca. I had bought this penthouse in advance. Top floor, 270-degree panoramic views of the Hudson River, tight security. Olivia rode up with us. Glancing around the massive living room and the custom-built playroom, she sighed in relief. This is nice. The property management company is owned by a friend of mine. You don't have to worry about security. Thank you. Oh, stop it. She checked her watch. I have to run. Another meeting tonight. Tomorrow at 5:00. I'll pick you up. We're going to my stylist. After seeing Olivia out, I showed the kids their new home. Mia ran from room to room in awe. Alex stood silently by the floor-to-ceiling window, watching the endless stream of yellow cabs and headlights below. Mommy, Alex suddenly said, did we come here to fight a war? My heart skipped a beat. I knelt down so we were eye level. Why do you ask that? When Aunt Olivia was talking, her face looked very serious. And when you look at those papers on your computer, you always frown. Alex's little hand touched my forehead. Right here. I took his hand. Alex, Mommy does have some business to take care of here. But you and your sister just need to be happy and grow up. Mommy will handle the rest. He looked at me for a long time, then finally nodded. Okay, I will protect Mia. In that moment, in his intensely serious gaze, I saw the shadow of him. I hugged him tight, and Mommy will protect you both. The next day at 5:00 p.m., Olivia arrived with a styling team. 2 hours later, I was looking at myself in the mirror. An emerald green velvet gown. Simple cut, but it perfectly accentuated my waist. My long hair was pulled back into a sleek low chignon. Modest pearl earrings. The makeup was light, but the focus was on my eyes. That was the part of my face that had changed the most. 5 years ago, the meek, submissive Anna Vance had died in front of that hospital screen. Standing here now was Anna Vance, CEO of Lumina. Flawless. Olivia circled me. When Damien sees you, his jaw is gonna hit the floor. Mia ran out of her room and hugged my leg. Mommy, you look like a princess. Alex followed, already dressed in a little tailored suit. Tonight, Olivia's assistant was taking them to a kid-friendly dinner spot, and I would pick them up after the gala. Be good for Auntie's friend. I bent down and kissed their foreheads. Mommy will be back soon. The gala was held in a rotating ballroom on the top floor of a skyscraper in the financial district. As the glass elevator ascended, the panoramic view of the New York skyline unfolded like a river of stars. Olivia linked her arm through mine. Don't be nervous, she whispered. Tonight, you're just making an appearance to let the industry know Lumina has arrived. We'll take the rest step by step. I'm not nervous, I replied. The elevator doors opened. The room was already packed. Crystal chandeliers refracted blinding light. The air hummed with the sound of a grand piano and the clinking of champagne flutes. Waiters glided between the guests. Barely had we stepped inside when a man approached us. Olivia, long time no see? A balding, middle-aged man extended his hand. Ah, Mr. Miller. Good to see you, Olivia smiled smoothly, taking a half step aside. Allow me to introduce Miss Anna Vance, founder of the maternal care brand Lumina. Anna, this is Mr. Miller, CEO of Miller Investments, Miss Vance. So young, yet so successful. Miller shook my hand. His gaze lingered on my face for a second. Have we met somewhere before? I just have one of those faces. I smoothly withdrew my hand with a smile. We exchanged a few pleasantries before other guests approached. Over the past 5 years, Olivia had built her PR firm into a powerhouse and had a vast network. She guided me around the room, and soon I had over a dozen business cards in my clutch. Anna, a soft male voice called from behind. I turned around. 2 steps away stood Andrew Osborne, holding a glass of champagne and smiling. He had matured since college. The eyes behind his gold-rimmed glasses were just as kind, but now they carried the sharp edge of a seasoned businessman. Mr. Osborne. I extended my hand. I've heard a lot about you. He shook my hand, holding it a second longer than strictly professional. It really is you. I heard the founder of Lumina was an Anna Vance from Singapore, but I thought it had to be a coincidence. Small world. I pulled my hand back. He was studying me openly, not hiding his inspection. You've changed a lot. 5 years is enough to change anyone. Mr. Osborne, you two know each other? Olivia interjected tactfully. We went to NYU together, Andrew smiled. Anna was the queen of the economics department. The line of guys waiting to ask her out stretched from the lecture hall to Washington Square Park. You exaggerate. I took a glass of sparkling water from a passing waiter. I don't drink. Tonight, I needed absolute clarity. While we were talking, a commotion rippled near the entrance of the ballroom. I didn't need to turn around to know who had arrived. That kind of aura. That kind of gravitational pull. It could only be him. Damien Mercer. Olivia instinctively squeezed my arm. I patted her hand lightly, continuing my conversation with Andrew without missing a beat. I read about the private clinic your firm is backing. Lumina has comprehensive tech-driven solutions for postpartum recovery. We should discuss a potential partnership. Absolutely. Andrew's gaze flicked past me toward the entrance. Damien Mercer just arrived. Shall we go say hello? No rush. I took a sip of my water. It's a long night. Even as I said it, I felt a stare burning into my back, sharp as a needle. Footsteps. The sound of expensive Italian leather on marble flooring approached. The chatter around us died down. The crowd parted naturally. I turned around. Damien Mercer stood 3 feet away from me. He wore a charcoal gray suit, no tie. The top button of his shirt was undone. 5 years had left their mark on his face. But it wasn't age, it was a cold, tempered hardness. His eyes were deeper, his jawline sharper. He looked like an unsheathed sword that had already tasted blood. He stared at me. His eyes swept over my face, down my figure, and snapped back to my eyes. In his gaze, there was shock, confusion, disbelief. And finally, It all froze into a bottomless darkness. "Anna," he said, his voice deeper than I remembered. "Mr. Mercer." I smiled and raised my glass slightly. Long time no see. The air in the room seemed to solidify. Everyone held their breath. Who in this room didn't know the massive scandal from 5 years ago? The sudden disappearance of the Mercer daughter-in-law? Who didn't know that Damien Mercer had been looking for this woman for 5 years? And here she was, radiant, confident, looking as if she had just returned from a long vacation abroad. Damien took a step forward. I caught the familiar scent of cedar, his cologne. He hadn't changed it in 5 years. "Where have you been?" he asked. His voice so low it sounded like he was forcing the words through his teeth. "Singapore," I answered breezily. "Started a company. Things are going well. How about you, Mr. Mercer? I hear Mercer Corp is thriving. Congratulations." He stared at me, as if searching behind a mask for any trace of pretense. He found none. Over the past 5 years, I had truly changed. Changed from the inside out. You. His Adam's apple bobbed. "When did you get back?" "Just this afternoon." I kept my smile in place. Barely made it to the gala. "Mr. Mercer, allow me to introduce you," I gestured. "This is Andrew Osborne, CEO of Osborne Health." "Andrew, an old college friend of mine." "Andrew, this is Damien Mercer, CEO of Mercer Corp. You must be acquainted." Andrew extended his hand right on cue. "Mr. Mercer, pleasure." Damien glanced at him but didn't shake his hand. His eyes snapped right back to me. "We need to talk. Now is hardly the time." I looked around. The gala was in full swing. "I'm here representing Lumina. We should observe professional etiquette, perhaps another time. I can have my assistant reach out to yours, Anna." He stepped even closer, practically invading my personal space. "Don't do this with me." The smile vanished from my face. "Mr. Mercer." I lifted my chin and looked him dead in the eye. "We are at a public industry event. Please maintain your composure. I don't believe we have any personal matters left to discuss." "No personal matters?" He let out a dark chuckle, as if he'd heard a joke. "You are my legal wife. You vanish for 5 years, suddenly reappear. And tell me we have no personal matters?" Gasps echoed from the bystanders. Olivia paled and opened her mouth to intervene, but I stopped her with a look. I set my glass down on a nearby cocktail table. The crystal clinked sharply against the glass top. "Legal wife," I repeated, my voice not loud but perfectly distinct. "Mr. Mercer, you seem to have forgotten that 5 years ago I signed a divorce agreement, and though you failed to countersign, we have lived apart for 5 years. Our marriage is irretrievably broken. I have already instructed my attorney to file a formal divorce petition. The paperwork will be on the desk of Mercer Corp's legal department by Monday morning." Damien's face instantly darkened. "You want a divorce? Isn't that what you and Irene always wanted?" I smiled again. "I'm merely granting your wishes." With that, I stopped looking at him. I turned to Andrew. "Andrew, regarding that project we discussed, I have a detailed proposal. I'll have my team send it to your office tomorrow." Andrew looked at me intently. "All right, I'll be waiting." I nodded to him and took Olivia's arm. "Liv, let's go say hello to the deputy secretary. I heard his wife just had their second child. She might be interested in our postpartum services." We turned and walked away. Even after taking several steps, I could still feel his gaze boring into my spine. Olivia's hands were shaking. "Anna, are you okay?" "I'm fine," I replied quietly. "This is just the beginning." For the rest of the evening, Damien never took his eyes off me, but I never looked his way again. I smiled, networked, traded business cards, and discussed partnerships. At the organizer's request, I even gave a 5-minute impromptu speech presenting Lumina's concept. The applause was thunderous. As I walked off the stage, I saw Damien standing in a corner holding a glass of scotch. He wasn't drinking, just watching me. In his gaze there was anger, confusion, and something I had never seen before: loss. The gala wrapped up at 10:00 p.m. Olivia went to get the car. I waited under the hotel awning. The night breeze was chilly. I pulled my shawl tighter. Footsteps sounded behind me. "Anna." I didn't turn around. Damien walked up and stood next to me. the smell of alcohol mixed with cedar. "The babies?" he asked. My heart constricted, but my face remained impassive. "Mr. Mercer, why are you asking about that? 5 years ago, when you left, you were 5 months pregnant." His voice was gravelly. "Did you have them?" I turned and finally looked at him. "I did," I answered. Something flared in his eyes. "But they have absolutely nothing to do with you," I cut him off. "They are my children, only mine. Anna." He grabbed my wrist. His grip was so tight my bones ached. "Those are my children. I have a right to know." "A right?" I laughed, violently yanking my arm free. "Damian Mercer, what exactly do you have a right to?" 5 years ago, when I was 5 months pregnant, waddling into a clinic for an ultrasound, you were throwing a multi-million-dollar wedding with another woman and broadcasting it to the world. Did you have a right to make a public mockery of me then? He froze. Did you have a right, when I needed you most, to ignore my calls? Did you have a right to let your mother humiliate me time and time again, trying to force me to abort them? I stepped closer to him. My voice was low, but every word sliced like a scalpel. "And now you want to talk to me about rights? You shredded your own rights with your bare hands 5 years ago." His face was ashen. His lips moved, but no sound came out. Headlights cut through the dark. Olivia's car pulled up. I gave him one last look. "Don't forget to sign the divorce papers. Dragging it out will only make it uglier for you." I opened the door and got in. As we drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror. He was still standing exactly where I left him, rooted to the spot like a statue. Olivia cautiously asked, "What did he say?" "Asked about the kids," I said, staring at the neon lights blurring past. "He guessed it. What happens now?" I leaned back into the leather seat and closed my eyes. Everything goes according to plan. What was meant to happen would happen. The city thrived in the night outside the window, but I knew that after tonight, something had fundamentally shifted forever. On Monday at 7:30 a.m., I stood with Alex and Mia outside the gates of Sunrise International Academy. It was the most exclusive private preschool in Manhattan. Bilingual immersion, elite security, and most importantly, rigorous background checks for admissions. I managed to secure 2 spots using my status as the CEO of a Singaporean corporation and my expat credentials. "Wow, Mommy, it's so big." Mia tipped her head back, staring at the building that looked like a historic townhouse. Her little face beamed. Alex silently took it all in, holding my hand tightly. The director, an elegant woman in her 40s named Miss Hughes, greeted us personally and gave us a tour. We keep our class sizes small, no more than 15 children per room. All our lead teachers are native speakers with master's degrees. The curriculum includes STEM, the arts, and emotional intelligence development, she explained as we walked. "Miss Vance, don't worry. Our families are highly vetted. The environment here is exceptionally stable. Stable." I glanced at the row of Maybachs and Range Rovers idling outside, but said nothing. Enrollment went smoothly. Alex and Mia were placed in the same room. Their teacher was a young, energetic British woman named Miss Mary. The kids adapted fast. Within 10 minutes, Mia had already made friends with a girl at the adjacent cubby. Alex sat quietly in the reading nook, flipping through a picture book. "They are wonderful, miss," Hughes noted approvingly. "Especially your son. His level of focus is remarkable for his age." "Thank you." I checked my watch. "I'll pick them up at 4. If anything happens, please call me immediately." I had barely stepped out of the school gates when my phone rang. It was the school. "Miss Vance, this is Miss Mary." The British accent sounded frantic. Alex got into a physical altercation with another boy in the class. "The other boy's mother is already here. Could you please come back? I'm on my way." When I walked back into the administrative suite, before I even opened the office door, I heard a shrill female voice. "What kind of feral child is this? Throwing punches at this age? Where are the parents?" I pushed the door open. Inside, Alex stood next to Miss Mary. His little face was tense, his collar a bit rumpled, but his back was ramrod straight. Opposite him, a chubby boy was crying, clutching the skirt of an exquisitely dressed young woman. A faint red scratch was visible on the boy's cheek. I recognized the woman immediately. Scarlett Sutton. Even with designer sunglasses and a silk scarf, that Chanel tweed suit and arrogant posture were unmistakable. Hearing the door open, she whipped around. Behind her dark lenses, her eyes went wide. "You?" I ignored her completely and walked straight to Alex. Kneeling down, I asked, "Alex, what happened?" Seeing me, Alex's tense shoulders relaxed slightly. "Mommy, he tried to steal Mia's toy first, and then he pushed her. I told him to apologize. He refused and called Mia a bad name. So I pushed him." "Pushed him?" Scarlett shrieked. "My son's cheek is red and you call that a push? He hit him!" "Miss Mary, how do you even accept children with aggressive tendencies into this school?" Miss Mary tried to de-escalate. "Miss Sutton, it was just a typical playground disagreement." "Disagreement?" Scarlett whipped off her sunglasses, revealing perfectly winged eyeliner. "I have never laid a finger on my son in his entire life. And some no-name brat beats him up, and you call it a disagreement?" At the words "no-name brat," the air in the room iced over. I slowly stood up. "Miss Sutton," my voice was dangerously calm. "Apologize." "Apologize?" Scarlett laughed like I had lost my mind. "Your kid beats up my kid, and I'm supposed to apologize? First, your son pushed my daughter. Second, the words you just used are highly offensive." I stared her down, enunciating every syllable. "Apologize to my son, right now." Scarlett's face twisted. She looked me up and down, her eyes catching on my tailored suit. Not a flashy logo in sight, but the cut and fabric screamed quiet luxury. "You're the mother?" She sneered, raising an eyebrow. "No wonder I haven't seen you around here before. New money. Mind your place." "That is none of your business." I turned to Miss Mary. "I want to see the security footage." Miss Mary hesitated. "We need the director's approval for that." "Then get the director." At that moment, the office door clicked open again, and a tall man walked in. Damian Mercer. He had clearly rushed over straight from the corporate office. Suit jacket draped over his arm, dress shirt sleeves rolled up to the elbows, exposing strong forearms. Seeing the standoff in the room, he frowned. "What's going on here?" Scarlett, spotting her savior, practically threw herself at him, grabbing his arm. "Damian, finally! Look at our Max's face. This kid beat him up. I demanded an apology, and they have the nerve to give me an attitude." Damian's gaze swept over the crying boy, and then landed on Alex. Time stopped. The room fell into a suffocating silence, the only sound the hum of the central air. Damian stared at Alex, unblinking. The shape of the eyebrows, the bridge of the nose, the way he set his jaw. The resemblance was so violently obvious that anyone with eyes wouldn't doubt their relation for a second. Alex stared back. In the eyes of a 4-year-old, there was only crystal clarity. No fear, no intimidation, just calm, reciprocal curiosity. This child. Damian's voice was dry, hollowed out. "Whose is he?" Scarlett, completely oblivious to the shifting tectonic plates beneath her feet, kept complaining. "They say they're new. God knows how he's being raised. He's mine." I stepped forward, shielding Alex with my body. "Mr. Mercer." "Hello again." Only then did Damian's gaze shift to me. His eyes were a chaotic storm shock, realization, fury, and a profound, agonizing pain. His Adam's apple bobbed. "How old is he?" 4. I cut back sharply. "Born December 17th. 5 months pregnant, plus premature labor at 7 months." The math checked out perfectly. The color drained completely from Damian's face. He let go of Scarlett's arm and took a step forward. He slowly crouched down until he was eye level with Alex. "What's your name?" Alex looked up at me. I gave him a small nod. "Alexander," the boy replied. "But they call me Alex." "Alex," Damian repeated, the word sounding like an exhale. "Is it just you and your mom? Do you have a sister?" Alex pointed to Mia, who had been standing quietly beside Miss Mary the whole time. "Her name is Mia." Damian's eyes shifted to the little girl in the pink dress with pigtails. Mia shyly ducked behind the teacher, but her eyes that were a near-perfect carbon copy of mine, made Damian sway. He had to grab the edge of the desk to keep from falling over. Scarlett finally realized something was horribly wrong. "Damian? What's wrong with you? Do you know them?" Damian ignored her. He stood up and looked at me. His eyes were bloodshot. "You've had them this whole time? What else was I supposed to do?" I shot back. "Wait for Irene Mercer to drop them at an orphanage? My mother." "Mr. Mercer," I cut him off sharply. "Right now, we are addressing a discipline issue. Your son stole my daughter's toy and pushed her." My son defended his sister and pushed him back. How do you suggest we resolve this? Damien took a deep, shuddering breath and turned to the still sniffling boy. Max, tell the truth. Did you start it? The boy, terrified by Damien's sudden sternness, shrank behind Scarlett. Damien! Scarlett was outraged. Max is only 4. What does he know? Even if he started it, it's just kids playing. That boy hit him hard. I am asking you. Damien stared the boy down. Did you push the girl first? Max burst into tears. I just wanted to play with her doll. Apologize, Damien ordered. Scarlett couldn't believe her ears. Damien, apologize, Damien repeated, his tone leaving zero room for debate. To the girl you pushed and the boy you insulted. The boy, sobbing, turned to Mia and Alex. I'm sorry. It's okay, Mia said softly. Alex stayed silent, looking at me. Alex, I said quietly. He apologized. What about you? Alex finally looked at the boy. I shouldn't have pushed you, but don't you ever bully my sister again. Max nodded. Okay. I turned to Miss Mary. Since this is resolved, I'm taking my children home for the day. They're excused from afternoon classes. Yes, of course, Miss Vance. I took the kids by their hands and headed for the door. As I walked past Damien, he stepped into my path. Anna, his voice was barely a whisper. We need to talk. Mr. Mercer, I am very busy. I didn't look at him. And I don't believe we have anything to say. They are my children. His voice finally cracked. I have a right. You have 0 rights. I snapped my head up and locked eyes with him. Legally, you provided half the genetic material. Factually, you haven't been a father for a single day of their lives. Damien Mercer, if you have a shred of conscience left, don't play the loving parent here. With that, I sidestepped him and walked out of the office. The hallway was quiet. Behind me, I heard Scarlett's shrill, panicked voice. Damien, what does this mean? Are those kids yours? Answer me. I didn't look back. Reaching the parking garage, I strapped the kids into their car seats. Only then did I realize my hands were shaking. Mommy. Alex suddenly piped up. Is that man my daddy? My hands froze on the buckle. I looked in the rearview mirror. Alex's face was completely calm. Mia was staring at me with wide eyes too. What I feared most had happened. I turned to face them in the back seat. Yes, but Mommy and he had some very bad things happen between us. That's why we don't live together. And you won't either. You just need to know that Mommy loves you. Aunt Olivia loves you. And that is enough. Okay. Alex nodded. Okay. Then Mia asked, does he love us? My heart felt like it was pierced by a needle. Mommy doesn't know, I answered honestly. But Mommy will love you enough for 2 people. So we don't need his love. On the drive home, Mia quickly fell asleep, but Alex kept staring out the window. As we neared our building, he said quietly, Mommy, I don't like him. Why? Because he made you sad. Alex's voice was small, but absolute. I saw it. When you looked at him, your eyes were sad. My grip on the steering wheel tightened. At 4 years old, a child is already so perceptive. Alex, I said softly. Mommy used to be sad. A long time ago. But now Mommy has you two. A company. A future. Mommy isn't sad anymore. That's good. He seemed to sigh in relief. If Mommy isn't sad, Mia and I are happy. After getting home and putting the kids down for a nap, I stepped out onto the balcony and called Olivia. Anna, what happened? You sound weird. Damien saw the kids at the preschool, I said. Dead silence on the line. And? He knows. I closed my eyes. Scarlett was there too. It was a whole scene. So what are you going to do? We stick to the plan. I opened my eyes and stared at the glass facade of the Mercer Corp Tower in the distance. Is everything ready? Ready. I have the original hospital security footage. I've also compiled the full chain of evidence regarding the fake quality reports for Mercer Baby. As for Scarlett, I tracked down her former assistant. She's willing to go on record that 5 years ago, Scarlett engineered the whole affair scandal by bribing the Mercer driver to take misleading photos of you with a college friend. Perfect, I said. Wait for my signal. I hung up and almost immediately my phone rang again. An unknown number. I picked up. Anna. It was Damien's raspy voice. We need to meet. Mr. Mercer, I'm very busy. Just 10 minutes, he said. I'm outside your building. I walked to the window and looked down. The familiar black Bentley was parked by the curb. Damien was leaning against the door, holding his phone, looking up toward my floor. Dusk was falling. The streetlights cast a long, lonely shadow behind him. But my heart didn't feel a single tug of pity. Wait there. I hung up, changed into casual clothes, and took the elevator down. Stepping out of the lobby, the cool night air hit my face. I pulled my coat tight. Damien straightened up when he saw me. Are the kids asleep? He asked. Yes. They're beautiful. His voice was low. They look like you. And me. I said nothing. He stared at me, a storm raging in his eyes. These 5 years. It must have been so hard for you. Alone with them. It was fine, I replied flatly. Easier than being with the Mercers. The corner of his mouth twitched. Anna. He took a step forward. For everything that happened, I owe you an explanation. I don't need one. I took a step back, maintaining the distance. Damien, if you came here tonight to dig up the past, we're done. There is nothing between us left to discuss, except the divorce proceedings. And the children? His voice rose. Those are my children. I have rights. What rights? I snapped. 5 years ago, when you humiliated me in front of the entire world, did you think about your rights as a father? When your mother repeatedly forced me to get an abortion, did you say a single word in my defense? What right do you have now to demand anything? In the dark, his face was paper white. I didn't know. His voice shook. I didn't know you were pregnant. My mother never told me. That wedding. I was forced. My mother threatened to jump off the roof of the corporate headquarters if I didn't marry Scarlett. And so, I laughed, though tears threatened to spill. So I was supposed to be the sacrificial lamb? I was supposed to carry your children and watch you marry another woman on TV? Stop blaming your mother, Damien. You're a grown man. You had a choice, and you chose what was most profitable for you. He shook his head, desperate to speak, but choked on his words. I wiped my eyes and took a deep breath. The divorce papers are filed. You will not get custody. Your 5-year absence from their lives, and your mother's documented attempts to coerce an abortion, mean no judge in this state will rule in your favor. If you have half a brain, just sign the papers, and we go our separate ways peacefully. Peacefully. The word seemed to physically wound him. Anna, how can we possibly part peacefully? Then we won't, I replied coldly. But the result will be the same. I am no longer the Anna you could manipulate 5 years ago. If you want a war, I'm ready. I turned to walk back inside. Wait, he shouted. Just let me see them. I am their father. I paused but didn't look back. Once the divorce is finalized, we'll talk, if they want to see you. As I walked through the lobby doors, I heard the muffled thump of a fist slamming into a car hood behind me. One strike, then another. I didn't look back. Riding the elevator up, I stared at my ice-cold reflection. This is just the beginning, Damien. Every drop of pain you caused me, I will make you bleed back. On Wednesday at 10:00 a.m., I got a call from Miss Hughes, the preschool director. Miss Vance, I'm so sorry to bother you. A man claiming to be the children's father showed up this morning. He demanded to take DNA swabs from Alex and Mia. We refused, of course, but he was incredibly aggressive. He brought a lawyer. Miss Vance, how should we handle this? My grip on the phone tightened. Was it Damien Mercer? Yes. He said if you don't consent, he's filing for a court-ordered paternity test. I'll be right there. When I arrived at the school, Damien was sitting on the sofa in the director's office. A middle-aged man in a suit with a briefcase stood next to him, clearly his attorney. Miss Hughes sighed in relief when she saw me. Damien looked up. His eyes were red, a dark stubble covering his jaw. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Anna. He stood up. We need to talk about the kids. There's nothing to talk about. I dropped my bag on the desk. Miss Hughes, I apologize for the disruption. I promise this won't happen again. Anna. Damien raised his voice. Are they mine or not? I need the truth. The truth? I turned to him. You already know it. If they weren't yours, would you be rushing here with a lawyer? I turned to him. You already know the answer. If they weren't yours, would you be rushing here with a lawyer? You just want a piece of paper to legally force your way into their lives. It is my right, he practically shouted. The office fell into a suffocating silence. Miss Hughes and the lawyer held their breath. I stared at Damien, and suddenly, I found it hilarious. 5 years ago, he couldn't have cared less about me. He didn't even know I was 5 months pregnant. And now here he was, frothing at the mouth, fighting for his rights. Fine, I nodded. You want a test? You get a test. He froze, clearly not expecting me to agree so easily. But I have conditions, I continued. First, the swabbing happens only in my presence. Second, when the results come back, and they prove you are the father, I paused. You and your mother will never come near them again. Impossible. Damien shot back instantly. If they are my flesh and blood, I will never abandon them. Then I'll see you in court. I grabbed my bag. Miss Hughes, please ensure unauthorized personnel do not approach my children. Anna. Damien stepped in front of the door. His voice dropped. What do you want? That's my blood. How can I pretend they don't exist? The same way you pretended I didn't exist 5 years ago. I looked him dead in the eye. He flinched. I walked past him and out the door. The hallway was flooded with bright, harsh sunlight. I leaned against the wall, taking several deep breaths to swallow the lump in my throat. Don't cry, Anna. You do not get to cry. My phone vibrated. It was Olivia. Anna, guess who just walked into my office? Her voice dripped with cold sarcasm. Irene Mercer. She's demanding to see you. Tell her I don't have time. I did. She won't leave. Says she'll sit here until you show up. Olivia lowered her voice. She brought a check, Anna. I caught a glimpse. $1 million. 1 million. 5 years ago, when she tried to force me to sign the divorce, she offered $500,000. Inflation, I suppose. I'm on my way, I said. Give me 20 minutes. While I was driving to Olivia's PR firm in Midtown, Andrew Osborne called. Anna, I heard you had some trouble this morning. His voice was gentle. Do you need help? News travels fast. Thanks, Andrew, but not yet. I kept my eyes on the road. It's family business. I can handle it. Okay. But I want to warn you. Andrew paused. The Mercers play dirty. Irene Mercer especially. She survived 30 years in corporate bloodbaths. Her methods are more vicious than you can imagine. You're alone with 2 kids. Be careful. I know. I said quietly. Thank you. I parked and took the elevator up to the 20th floor. The receptionist stood up immediately. Miss Vance. Olivia is in the main conference room. Mrs. Mercer is with her. I nodded and walked straight in. I pushed the glass door open. Olivia was sitting at the head of the table, looking miserable. Opposite her sat Irene Mercer, dripping in a plum-colored street John knit suit, hair perfectly coiffed, sipping tea from a bone china cup as if posing for Vogue. 5 years hadn't humbled her. They had only sharpened her arrogance. Anna. She set the cup down and looked up at me. Sit. It was the tone of a master commanding a servant. I sat down next to Olivia. Mrs. Mercer. You wanted to see me? I heard you returned. And brought 2 children with you. Irene pulled a check from her Kelly bag and slid it across the mahogany table. $1 million. Take the money, take the brats, and leave this country forever. I looked at the check. The zeros were written in immaculate cursive. I laughed. Irene, 5 years have passed, and you still think money solves everything. It is the most efficient method. Her face was impenetrable. Anna, you were smart enough to sign the divorce papers 5 years ago. Be smart now. Damien and Scarlett's wedding was delayed, but it will happen eventually. Your presence here with those children complicates things. Complicates things? I picked up the check and held it up to the light. Are you afraid I'll ruin your meticulously planned corporate marriage? Or are you afraid the Mercer family's dirty laundry is going to get aired out? Irene's face darkened. Watch your mouth. Oh, I am. I tossed the check back onto the table. But you, Irene, 5 years ago, you lied to me. You told me Damien was on a business trip while you were orchestrating his wedding to Scarlett Sutton. You forced me to sign divorce papers while I was pregnant. You even tried to bribe my OBGYN to prescribe me abortion pills. Do I need to list your crimes chronologically? Olivia gasped. Anna, is that true? Silence. Irene snapped at Olivia, then glared at me. There is no point in dredging up the past. You have two options. 1. Take the million and vanish. 2. She paused, her eyes narrowing. I will make sure you cannot survive in this country. A threat. A blatant, naked threat. I stared at her, suddenly remembering a sunny afternoon 5 years ago in their Greenwich mansion. She had sat on a velvet sofa, using that exact same glacial tone. Anna, Damien must marry a woman who can elevate this family, not some middle-class nobody like you. Leave quietly, and keep your dignity. I had cried then, begged, and eventually signed. But not today. I stood up, picked up the $1 million check, and slowly, deliberately, ripped it to shreds. $1 million won't sever the blood tie between me and my children. And it doesn't cover your son's debt to me. The torn pieces of paper fluttered down onto the polished table like snow. Irene's face finally cracked. Anna, do not test my patience. I leaned forward, planting my hands on the table, and looked directly into her eyes. Listen to me very carefully, Irene. I will divorce Damien Mercer, but he will not get my children. And as for you, everything you did to me 5 years ago, I remember. And the bill is coming due. I stood up straight and looked at Olivia. Liv, show our guest out. Olivia jumped up and opened the conference room door. Mrs. Mercer. After you. Irene stood up slowly. She looked at me with eyes dripping venom. You will regret this, Anna. My only regret is ever stepping foot in your house 5 years ago, I smiled. But I won't regret watching you and your son pay for what you've done. She said nothing else. Shoulders back, she marched out. The door clicked shut. Olivia rushed over and grabbed my hands. Are you insane? Tearing up her check to her face? Do you know who she is? I know. I walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, watching a black Rolls-Royce pull away from the curb below. I know she has connections. I know she's ruthless. But Liv, I'm not the girl she could crush like a bug anymore. I turned back to her. The war with the Mercers has started. There is no going back. Olivia stared at me in silence for a long time before exhaling heavily. What do you need me to do? Find me the most aggressive divorce attorney in New York, I said. And forward me the contact info for Scarlett's ex-assistant. It's time to drag some people into the light. Later that day, I was served with a court summons. Damien Mercer had filed a petition to establish paternity, demanding a court-ordered DNA test. Olivia was furious, nearly throwing a coffee mug against the wall. The audacity of this guy. Anna, we can't agree. The second the results are certified, he'll file for custody. We will agree, I said calmly, looking at the legal document. In fact, we'll make a huge public spectacle of it. What? I walked to my desk, opened my laptop, and pulled up a heavily encrypted file. This is the evidence I've been gathering for years. Records of Irene Mercer embezzling corporate funds and cooking the books. It's not enough to put her in federal prison, but it's enough to tank Mercer Corp's stock price. Olivia peered at the screen. You're going to use this to blackmail him into dropping the custody suit? No, I smiled. I'm going to use this to show them that Anna Vance didn't come back to negotiate. I came back to burn them down. 3 days later, Damien and I met at a court-appointed genetic testing facility in Manhattan. He looked even worse, haggard, bloodshot eyes, like he hadn't slept in a week. The kids were with me. Mia clung to my pant leg, looking scared, while Alex stood silently, staring at Damien. The procedure was quick. A technician swabbed the inside of the kid's cheeks and drew a vial of blood from Damien. Results in 5 to 7 business days, the tech said. As we walked out of the clinic, Damien called my name. Anna. His voice was raw. If they're mine, we can start over. I stopped but didn't turn around. Damien, in this life, you don't get to start over. You only get to be too late. I know I was wrong. He quickly moved to block my path. These past 5 years, I haven't stopped regretting it for a single day. I looked for you for 5 years. I waited for you. Waited for me? I laughed. Waited for your mother to try and pay me off with $1 million again? I won't let her interfere anymore. He grabbed my wrist. Anna, give me a chance. Let me make it up to you and the kids. Make it up? I looked him in the eye. How exactly do you plan to do that? With the 5 years you missed? Or with the sheer terror I went through nearly bleeding to death in the delivery room? He froze. Premature labor at 7 months. Hemorrhaging. 3 days in the ICU, I stated, word by word. Where were you? At a charity gala with Scarlett Sutton? Or busy letting your mother pick out your next trophy wife? His face went gray. His grip loosened. I didn't know. Of course you didn't. I picked Mia up and took Alex's hand. Because in your life, I never mattered. Stop playing the devoted husband, Damien. You just suddenly realized there are 2 people walking around with your DNA that you can't control. With that, I led the kids to the parking garage. He didn't follow me this time. On the drive home, Mia asked quietly, "Mommy?" The man looked sad. I glanced at my daughter in the rearview mirror. Mia, some people only get sad when they lose something. But it's not real sadness. It's just frustration. Alex chimed in. Mommy, if the test says he's our dad, is he going to take us away? My hands gripped the steering wheel. No. Mommy will never let anyone take you away. 5 days later, the results arrived. Damien, our lawyers, and I stood in the clinic as the sealed envelope was handed over. His lawyer tore it open eagerly, flipped to the last page, and his face dropped. Damien snatched the report. He looked at it once and froze. The paper slipped from his fingers and fluttered to the linoleum floor. I bent down and picked it up. Probability of paternity: 99.99%. Biological father confirmed. I handed the report back to his lawyer and looked at Damien. His eyes were red, his lips trembling. He wanted to speak, but he couldn't. Now you know, I said to him. They are your children. But that is all you will ever get to know. I turned to leave. Anna! His hoarse shout echoed off the walls. They are my children. Mine. So what? I looked over my shoulder. Legally, you might get visitation if I agree. Realistically, do you think they want a father who abandoned their mother? He sagged against the wall, as if all the bones had been removed from his body. I was wrong, he whispered. God, I was so wrong. Mistakes have a price. I gave him one last look, and you've earned this one. I walked out of the clinic first. The midday sun was blinding. I pulled out my phone and texted Olivia. Initiate. The war had officially begun. Lumina's official U.S. market launch presentation was scheduled for Friday at 2:00 p.m. in the Grand Ballroom of the Plaza Hotel. Invitations had gone out a week prior. Media, investors, partners, even a few competitors. Everyone who mattered was there. Backstage, a makeup artist was doing touch-ups on my face. Olivia stood next to me, checking her iPad. Your opening speech is 5 minutes. Then the brand video, product demos, and the signing ceremony. Andrew Osborne's clinic network is officially signing the contract today. Everything is locked in. She paused, lowering her voice. Damien Mercer is out there. 3rd row. Right side. I adjusted my earring in the mirror. Is he alone? Just him, his assistant, and his lawyer. Olivia frowned. Anna, you don't think he's going to cause a scene? If there's a scene, even better, I smiled. It would be worse if there wasn't. The woman in the mirror, wearing a sharp white tailored suit, hair in a sleek bun, with flawless makeup and eyes like daggers, was ready. The girl who hid in the corners of the Mercer mansion in a cheap dress 5 years ago was dead and buried. At exactly 2:00 p.m., I walked onto the stage. The spotlights blinded me for a second. The room was packed. Camera flashes strobed. Esteemed guests, members of the press, good afternoon. I am Anna Vance, founder and CEO of Lumina. My opening remarks were concise. I outlined Lumina's core philosophy, our technological edges, and our U.S. expansion roadmap. The crowd's reaction was warm, especially when I announced the strategic partnership with Osborne Health. Applause echoed through the room. The lights dimmed, and the promotional video played. High-end visuals of Lumina's Singapore clinics, professional staff, state-of-the-art facilities. It was polished and perfectly scored. When the video ended, the lights came back up. I walked back to the center of the stage and took the mic. Thank you for watching. However, today, alongside launching our brand, I would like to take this opportunity to make a personal statement. The ballroom went dead silent. I looked out into the third row, right side. Damian Mercer was sitting there, back straight, his heavy gaze locked on me. 5 years ago, I fled this city. I began slowly, my voice amplified across the room. At the time, I was 5 months pregnant. I went alone to a routine ultrasound at my prenatal clinic, and it was on that very day, on the television screen in the waiting room, that I watched a live broadcast of a spectacular wedding. The wedding of my husband, Mercer Corporation CEO, Damian Mercer, to the actress Scarlett Sutton. A collective gasp rippled through the audience. Camera lenses instantly swiveled toward Damian. The blood drained from his face, his hands clenched into fists on his knees. At that moment, Miss Mercer and I were still legally married, I continued. My tone as calm as if I were reading a weather report. During my pregnancy, his mother, Irene Mercer, repeatedly tried to coerce me into signing divorce papers and even attempted to force me to terminate my pregnancy. During my 5-year absence, I raised premature twins alone and built Lumina from the ground up in Singapore. Behind me, the massive screen flickered. The corporate logo vanished, replaced by a grainy but distinct security camera video. The timestamp, 5 years ago. The location, the VIP waiting room of a Manhattan clinic. The video showed a younger, paler version of me, clutching my stomach, staring up at a TV screen. And on that TV screen, clearly visible, were Damian and Scarlett kissing at the altar. The clip was only 30 seconds long, but it was enough. The ballroom erupted into absolute chaos. Journalists scrambled, cameras firing like machine guns. People were standing up, recording on their phones. Damian shot out of his chair. His lawyer tried to pull him back down, but he violently shoved the man's arm away. Anna. His voice carried over the din, raw and desperate. You had to take it this far? I looked down at him and clicked the presentation remote. The screen shifted again. This time, it displayed scanned documents, quality control reports for Mercer Baby products, internal corporate emails, and supplier invoices. Red circles highlighted data showing lead contamination, falsified inspection dates, and batch numbers for toxic raw materials. Over the past 5 years, under the leadership of Irene Mercer, the Mercer Corporation has aggressively expanded into the maternal and childcare market. My voice boomed over the speakers, each word a hammer strike. But in their pursuit of profit, they have repeatedly falsified safety data. What you are looking at are the actual lab results for 3 batches of Mercer Baby Lotion. Lead content exceeded federal limits by 30 times. Thanks to forged paperwork, those products were sold to the public. This is slander. Damian's lawyer jumped up, shouting, We will sue for defamation. Be my guest. I stared the lawyer down. I have already forwarded the original documents to the FDA and the Attorney General's office. Oh, and one more thing. I clicked the remote again. A bank transfer record and a photo of a check appeared on the screen. This is a $1 million check offered to me just 5 days ago by Irene Mercer. She demanded that I take my children and disappear forever. I refused and ripped it to pieces. But you can't destroy bank records. The room exploded. Damian stood frozen, staring at the screen, then at me, looking completely blindsided. His mother had done this behind his back, and he hadn't known a thing. I am not standing here today to complain or to beg for sympathy. I lowered the remote and swept my gaze across the frantic room. I am here to tell you that a woman, when faced with betrayal and corporate corruption, does not have to stay silent. I am here to show you that a mother protecting her children can be an unstoppable force. And finally, I looked directly at Damian. Those who committed the crimes will eventually pay the price. I gave a deep bow. For 3 seconds, there was stunned silence. Then, thunderous applause erupted from the back of the room, spreading until it was deafening. Olivia rushed onto the stage, flanked by security, and escorted me toward the backstage exit. Journalists swarmed the barrier, shouting questions over each other. Miss Vance, what is the status of your divorce? Are the allegations about Mercer Baby true? Will you press criminal charges against Irene Mercer? I didn't answer. Surrounded by guards, we moved quickly through the service corridors. Behind us, the ballroom sounded like a war zone. Olivia grabbed my arm, practically vibrating. Anna, did you see Damian's face? Oh my God, that was legendary. I leaned against the concrete wall of the service hallway and let out a long, shaky breath. My hands were trembling. Liv, where are the kids? They're fine. My assistant has them at the penthouse. They're safe. Olivia checked her watch. You can't go home right now. The press will be swarming your building. Go to my place to wait it out. The moment we pushed open the heavy exit doors leading to the loading dock, a black Bentley blocked our path. Damien stood next to it. His suit jacket was gone. His tie was ripped off, collar unbuttoned, his eyes a terrifying, bloodshot red. Seeing me, he closed the distance in 3 massive strides. Olivia stepped in front of me, but I gently pushed her aside. Anna. He stopped inches away from me. His voice sounded like it was coming over broken glass. Hate me. Punish me. But why destroy the company? That is my father's life's work. I am not destroying the company. I looked at him dead on. Your mother is? And you are, he flinched. If 5 years ago, you had the spine to say one word in my defense. If you had told me the truth before that wedding, if you had acted like a man, a husband, and a father, I enunciated every word, none of this would be happening today. He shook his head. Tears I had never, ever seen from him spilled over his lower lashes and rolled down his cheeks. This arrogant, untouchable man, who had controlled everything his entire life, was weeping in a loading dock. I didn't know. The words tumbled out of him. I swear to God, I didn't know what she did. I didn't know how bad your pregnancy was. I didn't know about the toxic products. It's too late, I said quietly. Damien, the second you said I do at that altar, it was too late. I walked around him toward Olivia's waiting SUV. Anna, he screamed after me. The kids. Just let me see the kids. My hand stopped on the door handle. I didn't turn around. When the dust settles, I said into the cold air. If they want to see you, I got in. As the SUV drove up the ramp and onto the street, I watched him in the side mirror. He fell to his knees on the concrete, burying his face in his hands. Olivia spoke softly. Anna, do you have any regrets? No. I closed my eyes. Liv, do you know how I survived those 5 years? I know. No, you don't. I opened my eyes and watched the Manhattan skyline blur past. When I was hemorrhaging in the delivery room, the doctor asked me who to save, me or the babies. Before I passed out, I said, the babies. When Alex was 3 months old, his fever spiked to 104 inches the middle of the night. I ran through a monsoon with him in my arms trying to hail a cab. The ER doc said it might be meningitis. I spent the entire night on my knees outside the pediatric ICU. My voice was perfectly even, but tears were streaming down Olivia's face. When I opened Lumina, local competitors tried to destroy me. They stole my clients. They started rumors that I slept my way to funding. I crawled through hell to get to today. And I didn't do it so some man could apologize and fix things. I turned to her. I am here to prove to the world that Anna Vance doesn't need anyone's mercy. She can conquer the world on her own. Olivia nodded fiercely, wiping her eyes. Yeah, you did. My phone rang. It was Andrew Osborne. Anna. I watched the live stream. His voice was deadly serious. That was a nuclear strike. The Mercers won't take this lying down. I know. Do you need to pull your investment? No, Andrew said. But I have legal and media resources on standby. Say the word. Not yet, I said. But I do have a favor to ask. Name it. Mercer stock is going to free fall tomorrow. I stared out the window. I want you to use your brokers to buy up every share the retail investors panic sell, as much as you can. Silence on the line. Anna, what are you doing? Taking back what belongs to me, I said quietly. 5 years of my youth and my tears are buried in Mercer Corp. It's time to collect interest. I hung up. We pulled into the private garage of Olivia's building. The kids were upstairs in her living room, playing with Legos on a giant rug. Seeing me, Mia jumped up and ran to hug my legs. Mommy! We saw you on TV. You look so pretty. Alex walked over, tilting his head up. Mommy, you must be really tired. I knelt down and hugged them both, burying my face in their hair. I'm not tired. I kissed their foreheads. Mommy did a very important job today. What job? I showed the people who bullied Mommy that they can't bully Mommy anymore. Alex thought about it, then said very seriously, Then Mia and I will protect you from now on. My eyes burned. Okay. That night, after the kids were asleep, I opened my laptop. The internet was a war zone. Number Damian Mercer bigamy. Number Mercer baby toxic. Number Irene Mercer bribe. Number Scarlett Sutton audio. 6 of the top 10 trending topics on Twitter were about my press conference. The official Mercer Corp accounts were flooded with tens of thousands of furious comments. Scarlett Sutton's Instagram was being annihilated. Her latest sponsored post for Mercer Baby had over 100,000 comments calling her a homewrecker and a child poisoner. I closed Twitter and opened my encrypted email. There was a new message from an anonymous sender. Attached was an audio file titled Insurance. I put my headphones on and clicked play. First, background noise, like a high-end restaurant. Then, a familiar female voice, Scarlett Sutton. Mrs. Mercer, don't worry, it's all handled. I paid off Arthur, the driver. He's going to photograph Anna meeting with her college buddy. He'll get an angle that makes it look like they're kissing. You show those to Damian, he'll buy it completely. Then, the cold, arrogant voice of Irene Mercer. Make sure it's clean. Anna is beneath our family. Damian needs to marry you to secure the Osborne merger. I know, Mrs. Mercer. Once Damian and I are married, I'll take very good care of you. The recording cut off. I saved the file and replied to the sender with one word, received. Outside, the city lights twinkled in the dark. But I knew that when the sun came up, several people's lives would be completely destroyed. And this was only the first wave. On Saturday at 8:00 a.m., my phone woke me up. It was Olivia. Her voice was shaking with adrenaline. Anna, turn on the news right now. Scarlett Sutton is trending at number 1. I rubbed the sleep from my eyes and opened Twitter. #. Scarlett Sutton audio leak #2. Irene Mercer framed daughter. In. Law #3. Mercer stock bloodbath. I clicked the first link. A newly created burner account had posted a long thread. 5 years ago, I was Scarlett Sutton's personal assistant. Today, I'm telling the truth. Attached was the exact audio file I had received last night. In 1 hour, the tweet had 500,000 retweets. The comments were apocalyptic. Holy shit! Literal proof. The mother and the mistress conspired to frame the pregnant wife. How blind is Damian Mercer? He married this? Irene Mercer is a monster. End of story. I scrolled down. More hashtags. Brand drop Scarlett Sutton. Mercer Corp official statement. FDA launches investigation into Mercer Baby. I clicked the corporate statement. It was a dry, desperate PR deflection. It claimed they were reporting defamatory online rumors to the NYPD and that the company was operating normally. No one bought it. The top reply was, "Are you calling the cops on yourselves?" I locked my phone and went to wash my face. The kids were already up, eating pancakes Olivia had made. Alex pointed a sticky fork at the TV. "Mommy, you're on the news again." I looked at the screen. CNN was covering the fallout. The camera showed the plaza outside the Mercer Corp headquarters on Wall Street. It was swarming with reporters and furious parents holding protest signs. Toxic products targeting infants. Dozens of consumer protection groups demand accountability. Movie star Scarlett Sutton at the center of a malicious family conspiracy, dropped by L'Oreal and Dior overnight. Mercer stock plummeted 15% at the opening bell, wiping out hundreds of millions of dollars in market cap. Security guards were struggling to hold back the mob. Executives were being hounded with microphones. I watched it with absolute detachment. Olivia walked over with a mug of coffee. "Irene Mercer is in the hospital," she said quietly. "Heart attack. They rushed her to Mount Sinai last night. Damian is with her." Olivia scoffed. "Karma." I said nothing. I walked to the window and looked up. Heavy gray clouds hung low over Manhattan. It was going to rain. The storm was here. At 10:00 a.m., Andrew called. "Anna, Mercer stock is down 20%. As you asked, my brokers have bought up about 3% of the outstanding shares from panicking retail investors." He paused. "But I don't get it. 3% doesn't even get you a board seat. It doesn't get me a seat today. Doesn't mean it won't tomorrow," I said. "Keep buying. If you run out of capital, tell me, where did you get this kind of liquidity?" "I haven't just been sitting on my hands for 5 years," I replied softly. "And I have an outstanding invoice with Irene Mercer. Silence on the line. Anna, know when to walk away. The Mercers are bleeding, but they are an institution. They won't sink entirely. If you back a wounded animal into a corner, it strikes back. I know, I said, but I've waited 5 years for this. I hung up, changed my clothes, and grabbed my coat. Liv, watch the kids. I need to go somewhere. Where? The hospital, Mount Sinai, the elite VIP wing. When I stepped off the elevator, a detail of Mercer corporate security guards blocked the hallway. Seeing me, they stiffened and moved to intercept, but they were immediately blocked by 2 massive men in dark suits private security Olivia had hired for me. Step aside, I said. They hesitated, exchanging glances, but ultimately parted. I walked to the last suite in the corridor and pushed the heavy oak door open. Irene Mercer lay in the hospital bed, an IV dripping into the back of her hand. She looked ghastly pale, but her eyes were just as sharp and hateful. Damien was sitting in a chair by the window, his back to the door. Hearing the latch, he turned. Seeing me, he shot out of his chair. Anna, why are you here? To visit Irene, I walked in and set a very expensive fruit basket on the bedside table. She did offer me $1 million yesterday, even if I declined it. Irene glared at me, her chest heaving under the hospital gown. You have the audacity to show your face here? Why wouldn't I? I pulled up a chair and sat down. Irene, did you hear the audio circulating on Twitter this morning? Her face went a shade whiter. It's a deepfake. Slander. I will sue you until you have nothing left. Sue me? I laughed. You should be figuring out what you're going to say to the SEC and the DOJ regarding the falsified safety reports. Oh, and the embezzlement. You thought you covered your tracks, but I have the receipts for every shell company you used. Irene's pupils constricted violently. Where? Where did you get those? I'll answer that for you, I said smoothly. Your most trusted CFO, Mr. Davis? His son got into some serious gambling trouble in Singapore last year. I bailed him out. Out of gratitude, he gave me some very interesting reading material. Damien stared at me, horrified, then looked at his mother. Mom, embezzlement? Is this true? Irene's lips trembled. She couldn't speak. It seems the CEO is out of the loop. Allow me to brief you. I stood up. Over the last 5 years, your mother siphoned at least $5 million out of Mercer Corp. $2 million went to fund Scarlett Sutton's production company. $1 million went to seed money for your cousin's failed tech startup. And the rest? Probably paying for this VIP suite. It isn't cheap. Mom. Damien's voice shook. Tell me it's a lie. Irene squeezed her eyes shut, and 2 tears leaked out. It was a confession. Damien staggered backward, hitting the windowsill. He looked entirely broken. I looked at him without an ounce of pity. Damien Mercer, do you understand now? I said quietly. Your precious family? Your supposed corporate duty? It was all an expertly crafted illusion. Your mother, in order to control the company and force you to marry the puppet she chose, was willing to poison babies and commit federal fraud. And you? I paused. You were just her compliant little pawn. No. He shook his head wildly. No, I wasn't. Whether you were or weren't, you have to live with it now. I walked toward the door, not looking back. I've instructed my lawyer to file a motion for an expedited, contested divorce. The hearing is Monday morning. As for the kids, when the dust settles, if they want to see you, I will arrange it. On one condition, you and your mother never interfere in my life again. I walked out and pulled the door shut. Through the heavy wood, I could hear Irene's muffled sobs and Damien's broken, shouting questions. But it was no longer my problem. Riding the elevator down, Olivia called. Anna! Scarlett Sutton is holding an emergency press conference. I'm sending you the link! I opened the live stream on my phone. Scarlett, wearing no makeup, her hair messy, and her eyes puffy, was sobbing in front of school. Irene Mercer threatened me. She said if I didn't frame Anna, she would blacklist me in Hollywood forever. I love Damien. I truly love him. This was all Irene's doing. I was just a pawn. The journalists in the room went on the attack. Miss Sutton, you say you were coerced, but 5 years ago, knowing Mr. Mercer was married, you slept with him anyway. In the audio tape, you don't sound like a victim. Now you're throwing your future mother-in-law under the bus. Do you have no shame? Scarlett just sobbed and shook her head, unable to form a coherent sentence. Her publicist quickly cut the feed. I locked my phone screen. Spiders in a jar, eating each other. When I walked out of the hospital, the rain had started. I stood under the awning, watching the heavy drops turn Manhattan into a blurry gray watercolor. A sleek black SUV pulled up to the curb. The tinted window rolled down. It was Andrew Osborne. "Get in," he called out. "I'll give you a ride." I didn't decline. The car was warm. Andrew handed me a paper cup of hot coffee. "Warm up, thanks." The SUV pulled into traffic. The wipers beat a rhythmic tempo against the windshield. "What's your next move?" Andrew asked. "Wait for the judge's ruling on Monday." I took a sip of coffee. "And then live a quiet life and raise my kids." "And Mercer Corp? Your shares? Just gonna sit on them?" "For now," I said. "Mercer took a massive hit, but give it 3 to 5 years and it'll stabilize. Their infrastructure is solid. If Damien can survive this onslaught, he might be able to rebuild it." "Do you want him to rebuild it?" I looked out the window at the rain-slicked streets. Did I? I didn't know. 5 years of hatred, a flawlessly executed revenge, the rush of vindication. But the hollow space in my chest hadn't vanished. Maybe there are some wounds that not even time or revenge can heal. You just learn to carry the scar. The car pulled up to my building in Tribeca. "Anna," Andrew said softly before I got out, "if, and I mean if, you ever want to start a new chapter with someone, consider looking at the people who have been standing right next to you." I turned to him. The tips of his ears were slightly red, but his eyes were entirely serious. "Andrew," I said gently, "right now, all I want to do is raise my kids. I don't have the capacity for anything else." He nodded, a soft smile returning to his face. "Fair enough. Then I'll just be the first guy in line." I stepped out into the rain. He didn't drive away immediately. He waited until I was safely inside the lobby before the SUV slowly pulled away. In the elevator, I stared at my damp reflection in the mirrors. There was deep exhaustion in my eyes, but overriding it was a profound sense of relief. After 5 years, this long, agonizing war was finally ending. When I walked through the door of the penthouse, the kids sprinted toward me. "Mommy, you're all wet. Go change so you don't get sick." I laughed, dropping to my knees to hug them, kissing their cheeks. Okay. Mommy will go change, and then we're going to build the biggest Lego castle ever. Yay. In my bedroom, I changed into dry sweats and walked to the window. The rain was still coming down, shrouding the city in mist. My phone buzzed. A text from Damien. "I will sign whatever is put in front of me in court on Monday. Tell the kids. Whenever they are ready, if ever. Tell them I'm sorry, and thank you for raising them so beautifully." I stared at the message for a long time. I didn't reply. Some apologies arrived too late to matter. Some things I simply hadn't learned how to forgive yet. But maybe, eventually, time would provide the answer. Outside, the rain was beginning to slow. On the horizon, over the Hudson, a thin sliver of light was breaking through the clouds. Monday morning. New York State Supreme Court, Family Division. The courtroom gallery was packed. Olivia, Andrew, and several friendly journalists I had invited. Irene Mercer didn't show up. Word was she had fled the country for medical treatment in Switzerland. Damien sat at the respondent's table in a black suit. His face was gaunt, but his back was straight. Next to him sat his high-priced litigator, surrounded by stacks of files. The judge called the court to order. My attorney stood up. "Your Honor, my client, Anna Vance, and the respondent, Damien Mercer, were married 8 years ago. 5 years ago, due to the respondent's highly publicized sham wedding to another woman and prolonged physical separation, the marriage was irretrievably broken. Ms. Vance signed a divorce agreement 5 years ago, which the respondent failed to execute. We are asking the court to grant the divorce, award sole legal and physical custody of the 2 minor children to Ms. Vance, order appropriate child support, and deny the respondent visitation rights." Damien's lawyer instantly stood up. "Your Honor, my client concedes fault in the breakdown of the marriage. However, we vehemently contest the denial of visitation. These are his biological children, and my client has fundamental parental rights." "Your Honor," I raised my hand. "May I speak?" The judge nodded. "Go ahead, Miss Vance." I stood up and looked directly at Damien. "Damien Mercer, I have one question for you. 5 years ago, on the day I went alone to my 5-month prenatal ultrasound, where were you?" The courtroom was dead silent. Damien's lips moved, his voice dry as dust. Getting ready for a wedding. A wedding to whom? To Scarlett Sutton. At the time, were we still legally married? Yes. Then tell me, my voice echoed in the cavernous room. Does a husband who throws a multi-million-dollar, televised wedding to his mistress while his legal wife is pregnant with twins have the right to demand the privileges of a father? Damien's face went completely ashen. He couldn't force a single word out. His lawyer tried to interject, but the judge held up a hand, silencing him. Respondent, answer the question, the judge commanded. Damien stared at the floor for a long time. Finally, he looked up, his voice cracking. I have no right, Your Honor. I turned to the judge. For the last 5 years, I raised these 2 children alone. Mr. Mercer fulfilled 0 parental obligations. Furthermore, at my most vulnerable point, his mother attempted to bribe me to abandon my children. I do not believe this man, or his family, should have forced entry into my children's lives. The judge frowned, flipping through the case file. Suddenly, Damien stood up. Your Honor, I withdraw all my objections. His lawyer stared at him in utter shock. Mr. Mercer, what are you doing? I consent to the divorce. Damien looked at me, his eyes rimmed with red. I consent to sole custody for Anna. I waive all demands for visitation. A collective gasp echoed from the gallery. The judge banged his gavel. Respondent, are you certain? I am certain. Damien's voice was quiet but resolute. I owe her a debt I can never repay. This is the only thing I can do to make it right. The ruling was issued swiftly from the bench. The divorce was granted. Sole custody to me. Damien was ordered to pay child support until the children turned 18. As for visitation, since Damien voluntarily waived his petition, the court honored it. Stepping out of the courthouse onto the marble steps, the sun was blinding. Olivia ran up and threw her arms around me. Anna, we won, we actually won. I patted her back, smiling. Yeah, we won. Andrew walked over, a warm smile on his face. Congratulations. Thank you, Andrew. As we were talking, Damien walked out through the heavy brass doors. He stood at the top of the steps, looking at me. He looked like he wanted to say something, but couldn't find the courage. Olivia immediately stepped between us. What else do you want? Damien shook his head. He reached into the inner pocket of his suit, pulled out a thick manila envelope, and held it out to me. This is for you. I didn't take it. What is it? The divorce decree, he said hoarsely, signed, and a legal transfer of 5% of Mercer Corp voting shares from my personal holdings. For you and the kids. I froze. Don't refuse it. He pressed the envelope into my hand. You and the kids deserve this. Anna, I'm sorry, and thank you for raising them. He turned and started walking down the steps. Damien, I called out. He stopped, but didn't turn around. The kids. I paused. If you really want to see them, you can. But only supervised by me. And only if they ask for it. His shoulders trembled slightly. He stood perfectly still for several seconds before finally answering, Okay. Then, he walked down the rest of the steps, got into the back of his Bentley, and drove away. Olivia stared at the envelope in my hand. Anna, are you really going to take that? I am. I slipped the envelope into my tote bag. It's what he owes his children. That evening, I cooked a massive celebration dinner in the penthouse to mark the start of our new life. Alex and Mia were overjoyed, chattering nonstop about what happened in school. After dinner, I was reading them a bedtime story. Mia suddenly looked up. Mommy, is Daddy going to come see us again? I smoothed her hair. If you guys want to see him, Mommy will set it up. But you have to remember, with or without Daddy, Mommy will always love you. Alex leaned against my arm. Mommy, he said quietly, I think I want to see him. My heart softened. Why? Because he looked really sad. Alex looked up at me. And he is my dad. I hugged him tight. Okay, Mommy will set it up. A week later, I brought the kids to an upscale indoor playground in Chelsea. Damien was waiting. He was there early, dressed in jeans and a sweater, holding 2 giant stuffed bears. He looked as nervous as a teenager on a first date. Seeing us, he immediately stood up. Alex, Mia. He knelt down to their eye level. I'm your dad. Mia stared at him with wide, curious eyes. Alex nodded. We know. Damien's eyes filled with tears. These are for you. He offered the bears. Mia took hers and smiled sweetly. Thank you, Daddy. Alex took his, but didn't say anything. The visit was short, just an hour. Damien pushed them on the swings, caught them at the bottom of the slides, and bought them ice cream. He was incredibly restrained, walking on eggshells, terrified of doing or saying the wrong thing. When it was time to leave, Mia ran up and hugged his leg. Daddy, can we play again next time? The tears finally broke, rolling down Damien's face. Yes, of course. Alex walked up and formally held out his little hand. Damien shook it gently. Goodbye, Alex said. On the drive home, Mia asked, Mommy, is Daddy a good person? I thought about it. People aren't just good or bad, Mia. He made some very big mistakes. And he hurt Mommy a long time ago. But he's trying to do better now. You guys can get to know him and decide for yourselves. Alex nodded. I understand. Time moved on. Lumina exploded across the US market. The partnership with Osborne Health was wildly successful. Mercer Corporation struggled through the fallout of the scandal. Damien stepped down as CEO, handing the reins to an outside crisis manager. Irene Mercer remained in Europe, permanently exiled from the company board. Scarlett Sutton became a Hollywood pariah and vanished from the public eye. It seemed everything had finally settled into peace. Then, 3 months later, on a normal Sunday afternoon, my phone rang. It was Damien, Anna. His voice sounded strange, hollowed out. I'm on the roof of the Mercer building. Can you come? I need to give you something in person. I frowned. Give me what? You'll see when you get here, he said. I'm alone. There's no one else here. I looked over at the kids watching a movie, thought about it for a moment, and agreed. Fine, I'll be there in 30, the roof of the Mercer Tower in the financial district. When I pushed open the heavy security door, Damien was standing by the parapet, his back to me, staring out over the sprawling grid of Manhattan. The wind whipped at his coat. You came. He kept his back to me. What did you need to give me? I stopped 10 feet away from him. He finally faced me. In his hand was a thick legal binder. He turned around. In his hand was a thick legal binder. This is another 8% of Mercer Corp voting shares. He held it out. Combined with the 5% I gave you, that's 13. You are now the third largest individual shareholder in the company. I didn't take it. What is this supposed to mean? It's the last thing I have to give you. He looked at me, his eyes incredibly calm. Peaceful, almost. Anna, I'm leaving. Leaving the country? He smiled. A smile that looked like a heavy chain had been cut from his neck. I have nothing to do with the company anymore. My mother is permanently in Europe. There is absolutely nothing anchoring me to this city anymore, except you and the kids. I stayed silent. Before I go, I want to give you what I owe you. He stepped forward and placed the heavy binder into my hands. These shares will ensure that you and the kids will never want for anything, for the rest of your lives. Even if Lumina crashes and burns, you have a failsafe. I don't need this. You do, he cut me off. Anna, I know you're strong. I know you conquered the world without me. But this is the only thing I can do for my children as their father. Take it. Consider it my parting gift. I looked down at the heavy leather-bound folder in my hands. When is your flight? Tomorrow morning. He looked out at the skyline. Do the kids know? No. He shook his head. Don't tell them. Once I'm settled, I'll set up a FaceTime routine. Silence fell over the rooftop, save for the howling wind off the East River. Finally, Damien spoke again. Anna, can I ask you one last question? Ask. If that wedding never happened? If my mother hadn't interfered? Would we have had a chance? I looked at him. At the man I had once loved with everything I had, hated with a burning passion, and finally, ultimately, let go. There are no ifs in life, Damien, I said softly. It's time for both of us to move on. He froze, processing the words. Then, he smiled. Yeah, move on. He held out his hand. Let's shake hands. One last time. I wish you and the kids nothing but happiness. I reached out and shook his cold hand. Take care of yourself, Damien. I released his hand and turned to walk toward the exit. Anna! He called out behind me. I stopped and looked back. He was standing near the edge. The wind battered his clothes. He looked so fragile in that moment, like a gust could carry him away. I'm sorry, he said, and thank you for loving me once. My nose stung fiercely, but I held it back. Goodbye, Damien. I pulled the heavy roof door open, stepped inside, and let it click shut behind me. Riding the elevator down, I stared at my reflection in the polished metal doors. The tears finally fell. Not for him. For the dead love. For the naive, stupid girl I used to be. And for all the suffering and fighting of the last 5 years. But after the tears fell, the hollow space in my chest that I had carried for half a decade finally filled up. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. It was just an ending. Enough. Let it be. When I walked back into the penthouse, the kids were building a fort in the living room. Mia ran up and hugged me. Mommy, why are your eyes red? I knelt down and pulled both her and Alex into my arms. Because Mommy is just so happy. Why are you happy? Because I have you two. I kissed their soft cheeks, breathing in their scent. With you guys, Mommy is the luckiest person in the whole world. Alex looked at me with his serious, profound eyes. We're the luckiest, too. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the sun was setting over the Hudson River, painting the sky in brilliant, warm shades of gold and orange. A new life had truly begun, and I could finally, truly, walk forward.